What if I told you the most devastating form of revenge isn't chaos? It's silence. Not the kind of silence that begs for attention, but the kind that denies it. The kind that doesn't arrive with a scream but with the eerie absence of one. No slammed doors. No long goodbye. Just your vanishing presence echoing louder than any confrontation ever could. This isn't ghosting. This isn't cowardice. This is psychological precision. Because when you detach quietly, without explanations, you become the question that never stops repeating in their mind. And when you stop offering justifications, their mind starts writing stories on a loop. Why did you leave? What did they miss? What did they do? That's the first rule of power. Let them haunt themselves. No need to chase closure. No need to scream. When you disappear without drama, they will create it for you. And you've already moved on mentally, emotionally, strategically. Closure? That's a trap. What you really need is distance. Distance sharpened by indifference. Let your silence become your sword. Let the mystery ignite their anxiety. Let your absence rock the illusion they built around controlling you. Comment this to remind yourself, my silence is power. My absence is the consequence. 1. The art of emotional starvation they fed on your reactions. Every sigh, every angry text, every emotional outburst. They needed it like oxygen because your emotions confirmed they still had power. That's what most people don't want to admit. Some don't stay because they love you. They stay because they can still get a rise out of you. If they can make you angry, jealous, or desperate, in their mind, they still own a part of you. And for a while, maybe you let it happen. You explained, you argued, you tried to prove your worth through words. But here's the truth. People don't respect explanations. They respect silence. They notice the moment you stop proving and start vanishing. Emotional starvation is the cleanest form of execution. When you cut them off not physically, but psychologically, you flip the power dynamic. Suddenly, they're not evaluating you anymore. Your silence becomes a mirror, and what they see in it terrifies them. You're not feeding them anymore. No more attention, no more reactions. No more reminders that they still matter to you. And when you remove that supply, they do one of two things. They collapse, or they come crawling back. But you're not waiting for either. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming control. Detachment is not passive. It's a weapon. It's the refusal to let someone live rent-free in your mind. It's the day you stop bleeding emotionally and start healing through quiet withdrawal. You don't need to be understood. You don't need to get even. You just need silence sharpened. Like a blade, let it cut. Let it haunt. Let them feel what you'll never say again. Because nothing disarms a manipulator faster than your calm, unshakable indifference. You're not ignoring them. You're dismantling their illusion of control. Comment this to claim it. My silence isn't empty. It's loaded. 2. The psychological power of disappearing without explanation. You remember what we said. Silence isn't emptiness, it's power. It's the cleanest, sharpest form of detachment. And when you withdraw without a single word, the echo of your absence speaks louder than any final message ever could. Because as long as you're still reacting, they think they still matter. They think they still own a piece of you. That's why they don't panic when you argue. They panic when you vanish. Detachment without explanation. It's not cruelty. It's surgical. It slices you out of their world so cleanly, so suddenly, that they're left in freefall spinning in the vacuum you left behind. They keep reopening the message thread, refreshing it, expecting some kind of closure, a text, a line, a sign. But nothing comes. Nothing ever will. And that silence becomes unbearable. In their mind, the conversations continue. They replay everything looking for clues, trying to decode the moment they lost you. But you're already gone, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and that's what they can't accept. You didn't slam a door. You didn't throw a final monologue or demand to be seen. You just stopped showing up. And that haunts them, because now you're not a person they can reason with, or fight with, or guilt trip. You're a thought, a haunting, a mystery they can't unravel. That's where your real power begins, becoming the unsolvable question that never leaves their mind. Your silence becomes the final word, a quiet, irreversible sentence. You are no longer worthy of access to me. And that truth, that annihilates their illusion of control. So don't fear becoming the ghost in their thoughts. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but out of calm, cold, unapologetic freedom. You've moved from the battlefield to the balcony, from emotional chaos to sovereign distance. Let them spiral. Let them wander. Let them drown in the noise of their own unraveling while you remain still in your own peace. Comment this to seal it in. I vanish without explanation, and that's enough. 3. Control yourself, and you control everything. Power doesn't start with them. It starts with you, your mind, your impulses, your reactions. True control isn't about dominating others. It's about not being moved when the world tries to shake you. Ask yourself, how many times did they drag you out of character just to soothe their own insecurity? How many times did they press your buttons and you reacted, thinking you were defending yourself? But every reaction was a signal. They still had access to your emotional switchboard. They could still reach you, still rattle you, still manipulate you. But now you've evolved. You've learned the most terrifying form of power isn't anger. It's restraint. When they try to guilt you, you remain still. When they bait you, you stay silent. When they shame you, you smile but say nothing. Because here's the thing. They don't know what to do with someone who can't be emotionally stirred. That's what scares them. Your emotional control exposes their lack of it. You've stopped handing out your peace like a gift. Now you guard it like a weapon. Let's be clear. Your indifference is not weakness. It's warfare. Quiet, precise, lethal. While they scream and scramble, you rise in silence. While they provoke, you observe. While they crave chaos, you offer mystery. Eventually, they'll realize you've become untouchable. Not because you shouted louder, but because you refused to play. This isn't just about cutting them off. It's about cutting away the part of yourself that needed to respond. That craved validation. That tried to prove its worth to people who never deserved your energy. Let them shout into the void. Let them break themselves trying to pull you back. You've already left. 4. When you pull away, They fall apart. Most people aren't really addicted to you. They're addicted to the illusion of control they thought they had over you. So when you start pulling away, it's not your presence they miss, it's their grip. And when that grip begins to loosen, panic follows. Fast. Watch closely. When your responses aren't instant anymore. When your texts go from enthusiastic to delayed. When your energy shifts from generous to gone. You'll see it. The tension. The anxiety. The guilt trips dressed as concern. The random check-ins that aren't really about you, but about them trying to secure their influence again. They'll scramble to reel you back in. Not out of care, but out of desperation to regain control. This is the beginning of collapse. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts subtle, then gets messy. Because your silence holds up a mirror they can't bear to face. Suddenly, they see the truth. They were never as vital to you as they told themselves they were. Let them spiral. Let them chase a version of you that no longer exists. You've evolved. You've taken back your energy, your validation, your emotional effort. And without those, they're exposed, stripped of the illusion of power they once held. Understand this clearly. Your detachment is not punishment. It's a recalibration of value. You've stopped giving where you weren't appreciated. You've stopped over-explaining, overextending, over-trying. And now they're left alone face to face with the vacuum your absence created. They don't need closure. They need consequences, and your silence is the consequence. You want psychological dominance? Then stop handing out your presence like it's free. Make people earn your energy, and when they lose access to it, let them feel that loss fully. No rescue, no warning, no explanations. They had your time and they wasted it. Now they get the aftermath. Not loudly, quietly, coldly, absolutely. Comment this to claim the power shift. I pull away, and they fall apart. 5. Detachment is not indifference, it's intelligence. Let's set the record straight. Detachment isn't weakness. It's not bitterness. It's not giving up. Detachment is clarity. It's intelligence, sharpened by repeated experience. When you detach, it means you finally saw the pattern and refused to keep playing the part they assigned you. You figured it out. The cycle was always the same. They pull you in, provoke you, drain you, then discard you until they need you again. And every time you went back, you taught them something dangerous. That your forgiveness was cheap. That your boundaries were flexible. That your return was guaranteed. But not anymore. Now you move differently. You don't talk, you observe. You protect your energy like it's sacred. Because it is. You don't chase chaos. You don't argue. With manipulation, you don't stay where you're not valued. And no, that's not cruelty. That's evolution. Detachment doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you've trained yourself to not act on every impulse. To not let emotions dictate your decisions. That's what makes you untouchable. Not the absence of feeling, but the presence of self-command. Let them say you're distant. Let them accuse you of being cold, uncaring, changed. Let them talk. Because they're right. You have changed. And that's exactly the point. You've changed not into someone heartless, but into someone who no longer bleeds just to keep others warm. Your energy is no longer a free-for-all. Your time is no longer up for grabs. Your presence, no longer a gift to be taken for granted. This isn't cruelty, it's selection. And there's deep power in that. The world doesn't respect those who overgive. It respects those who withhold, those who pause, observe, and decide who's truly worth their energy. That's the quiet truth no one wants to say. So the next time guilt whispers in your ear, the next time you feel bad for walking away, remember this. Detachment isn't coldness. It's wisdom. Let them collapse under the weight of your silence while you rise, untouched, beyond their reach. Comment this to anchor it in. Detachment is my discipline. I move with wisdom. 6. You don't chase what you've outgrown. There comes a shift. A moment where you stop chasing people, not because you stopped caring, but because you outgrew the version of yourself that needed them. The version that tolerated disrespect. The version that begged to be noticed. The version that settled just to feel seen. That version gone. In its place stands someone sharper, more dangerous, because you no longer need to be loud to be powerful. That's what growth is. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't announce itself like a parade. It just leaves. Quietly, efficiently, without turning back. Because once you see the truth, once you understand the emotional chaos they brought, the mind games they played, the energy they siphoned, you don't want revenge. You want peace. And peace doesn't beg. Peace disappears. Let them call it ego. Let them say you switched up. Let them rewrite the story to soothe their own shame. You did change. That was the entire point. You were never meant to stay at the level they could control. Never meant to keep giving when it cost you yourself. They expected access forever. They never imagined you'd become someone they could no longer reach. Not because you blocked them, but because you leveled up psychologically. Now their tricks don't work. Their silence doesn't sting. In fact, it feels like relief. You don't need to slam doors. You just stop knocking. You don't need to burn bridges. You just stop crossing them. Detachment doesn't need to be dramatic. It only needs one quiet, final decision. You're done explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. So you rise, in silence, with grace, and without apology. You stop losing sleep over people who were only ever loyal to your vulnerability. You've evolved. And that evolution, it cost you your tolerance. Now, you've sharpened your mind. You've mastered your emotions. And you've reclaimed your power of choice. You don't chase. You assess. You don't react. You observe. You don't beg. You detach. Comment this if it speaks to your journey. I no longer chase what I've outgrown. 7. Let them miss the version of you that no longer exists. They didn't value you when they had you. They treated your presence as ordinary, mistook your reliability for weakness, spent your kindness like it was currency with no limit, never imagining the account would run dry. But now that you're gone, now that your energy isn't available on demand, now that your support, your smile, your soft patience has vanished, suddenly you're rare. But here's the truth. You didn't just become rare. You were always rare. They simply didn't have the depth or the clarity to recognize it. You were the steady hand in their chaos, the calm voice during their storm, the safe place in the middle of their confusion. But they didn't want peace. They didn't want grounding, they wanted control, they wanted drama. And when you refused to keep bending, when you finally stopped shrinking yourself to fit their dysfunction, they acted like they didn't care, like you'd never actually leave. So you did, quietly. No breakdown, no broadcast, no fireworks. You simply stopped showing up to the performance. And what followed? Silence. But not the kind that whispers, the kind that roars. The kind that shakes rooms not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. You didn't beg. You didn't justify. You didn't throw one last desperate plea to prove your worth. You just exited. And that version of you, the one who stayed too long, the one who forgave too fast, the one who kept putting others first, even when it meant bleeding alone, that version is gone. Dead. Buried. Laid to rest beneath the weight of your own evolution. What remains now is someone sharper, less available. Not bitter, just awake. Let them miss the old you. Let them chase echoes. Let them scroll through old messages, retrace old memories, wondering where exactly it all changed. That's not cruelty. That's consequence. Because here's the part they never understood. When someone detaches silently, they've already detached internally long before they physically walked away. You were already done. You just hadn't said it out loud yet. And by the time they noticed, you were miles ahead emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Now they're stuck chasing a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. A version they didn't protect when they had the chance. And that's the quiet tragedy they'll never admit. They had your full attention and they wasted it. So let them linger in your old photos. Let them reread your messages like sacred text. Now that you're no longer around to speak them, let them ache for your presence in rooms where your silence is louder than your voice ever was. Because if you've evolved, upgraded spiritually, mentally, emotionally, then you no longer belong to that past version of yourself. You owe them nothing, no re-entry, no explanation, no access to who you've become. Because the new version of you, it's not for everyone. It's for the ones who recognize value before it vanishes. For the ones who protect what they care about, not after it's gone. But while it's still there, you're no longer available for inconsistent love. You no longer bleed for people who never learned how to hold you gently. You no longer translate your soul for people who never cared to understand it. And that's your liberation. Let them sit with the void. Let them stew in the silence. Let their thoughts spiral every time they see you post and say nothing. You don't owe them a response. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. And now, finally, you've claimed it. So when they whisper, you've changed, smile quietly. Yes, you have. And the best part? You're just getting started. Comment this if you've risen above who you used to be. Let them miss the version of me that no longer exists. 8. The strongest revenge is no longer needing revenge. It's tempting. Let's be honest. When someone manipulates you, mistreats you, uses your loyalty like a doormat, the first instinct is to make them feel it, to make them regret, to show them exactly what they lost in the loudest, most dramatic way possible. But here's what no one tells you. The strongest revenge is no longer needing revenge at all. It's the realization that they're not even worth the mental energy, Not worth the calculation. Not worth the emotional rent in your head. Because plotting their downfall, that costs you something far more precious, your peace. And peace is the one thing you've finally earned. Revenge still ties you to them. It means they still have influence over your mind, your emotions, your focus, your time. And if they still have that, then they still win, even if you think you're winning. So don't strike back. Don't clap back. Don't stoop. Don't even announce your exit. Just rise. Let them waste their energy trying to provoke a reaction from someone who's already left, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, energetically. You're no longer orbiting their chaos. You've exited the battlefield entirely. And your silence, your indifference, it hits harder than rage ever could. You're not unavailable to punish them. You're unavailable because you've outgrown them. That version of you who needed to be heard, needed to prove a point, needed to be understood. That was a version still wounded. But this version, healed, sharpened, busy, to focused on building to even look back. They want you angry, because angry is familiar. Angry means you still care. Angry means they still matter. But you don't give them that. You give them nothing. No texts, no shade, no subtle digs, no explanations, just distance. You disappear into your success, into your stillness, into that stoic, steady silence that speaks volumes. And here's what really haunts them: watching you live well without them, seeing you happy, clear, calm, elevated, watching your life blossom without their presence. That's the echo they can't silence. That's the ghost that haunts them, not because you destroyed them, but because they had front row access to your soul and still didn't value it. You don't have to tear them down. Life will do that for you. Their ego, their repeated patterns, their refusal to evolve. That's the ticking time bomb they're strapped to. You're already out of range. You've stopped trying to be understood. You've stopped checking if they noticed. You've stopped hoping they'd change. You finally accepted what they kept trying to gaslight you into forgetting. You are the prize. You were never too much. You were simply in the wrong place, among the wrong people. And now that you've detached quietly, with dignity, your absence has become the consequence they never saw coming. So don't break your silence. Don't explain. Don't justify. Don't respond. Let your growth be the closure. Let your silence be the strategy. Let your evolution be the answer. They'll talk. They'll speculate. They'll rewrite history to suit their guilt. Let them. Because when your life becomes the proof, you no longer need to correct the record. When you're unbothered, untouchable, when you've outgrown both the drama and the desire for retaliation, you're not just free, you're powerful. And power doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It doesn't fight petty battles. It walks away, quiet, composed, unshaken. Comment this if you've risen to higher ground. My evolution is the only revenge I need. 9. You win when you walk away without looking back. This is the part they never expected. The part where you don't flinch. Where you don't check their stories. Don't scroll through their updates. Don't ask mutual friends how they're doing. You don't stalk. You don't wonder. You don't care. And that silence, that genuine detachment. It terrifies them more than any confrontation ever could, because, in their mind, you were supposed to fall apart without them. You were supposed to chase, to spiral, to explain yourself. They thought you needed them. They thought you'd come running back. But instead, you disappeared, not as a tactic, not as some manipulative ploy, but as a transformation. You didn't just leave their life. You left their control. You slipped out of their grip, severed their emotional leash, and stepped fully into your power. Now, you walk with a silence that shakes foundations, a peace so grounded it makes others question their own relevance. You smile like someone who finally understands. Not everyone deserves closure, because not everyone earned the right to your presence in the first place. Let this truth settle in your bones. Not every bond is sacred. Not every connection is worth saving. Some people don't break you to teach you a lesson. They break you to expose the weakness in your boundaries, so that next time you rebuild not with skin, but with armor. You win the moment you walk away without flinching. That's not indifference. That's alignment. You've aligned with your worth, with your values, with your peace. You no longer squeeze yourself into broken spaces just to prove you're whole, because now you know you've been whole all along, and that changes everything. The final form of power is silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of strategy, of strength, of a door closing softly, completely, and without regret. Let them relive the moments they ignored your value. Let them overanalyze the quiet. Let them read through old texts like scripture, trying to decode the warmth you once offered, now gone, like it never existed. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. You stopped showing up to wars that weren't worth winning. You stopped offering softness to people who met it with sharpness. You stopped begging to be seen by eyes too narrow to recognize depth unless it screamed dot. And now, you're dangerous because you no longer need to be loud to be heard. You no longer need to prove anything. You are the proof. This new version of you, it isn't just distant, it's disciplined. You've mastered your emotional kill switch, not to wound, but to protect. You've accepted the truth. Some people only ever loved your wounds, not your healing, not your wholeness. And when you healed, they lost access. So let them spiral. Let them build theories. Let them assume your silence is temporary. Let them believe you'll return. You one single quotes T. There is no encore, no final goodbye, no last blow dash up. Just stillness. And that's the part they'll never understand. Because closure, it's not something you wait for. It's something you become. You are the closure. You are the silence they will never unhear. You are the answerless question that will echo forever. Let your absence teach what your presence never could. You're not hiding. You're not retreating. You are rising above it, beyond it, past the need to explain any of it. Your focus, dangerous now, disciplined, selective, untouchable. You've evolved from needing to be loved to commanding respect, from tolerating chaos to walking only in peace, from chasing attention to commanding it through stillness, through presence, through absence. And that's the real victory, not the one they can witness, but the one that lives in you, quiet, final, unshakable. Comment this one last time to seal your transformation. I walk away and I never look back. If this message spoke to your soul, don't just keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Stoic Capsule for more powerful truths that speak in silence and transform in strength. Your evolution starts here. Let the world feel your absence because your presence is no longer free.